The agricultural work on Veli's Prime was exactly as exciting as it sounded. Irrigation system upgrades, soil composition analysis, and endless meetings about optimal crop rotation schedules. Jackson Reed had been contracted for 6 months as an engineering consultant, and he'd spent most of it elbow-deep in hydraulic systems while trying not to embarrass himself too badly with Velisian formal customs. The Velisians were elegant people, tall and precise, with those distinctive pointed ears and skin that shifted through metallic tones reflecting their emotional states. Their culture valued careful words, formal protocols, and measured consideration of every action. Jackson, who'd learned engineering by breaking things until he understood how they worked, was basically their cultural opposite. But the pay was good, the work was interesting enough, and he genuinely enjoyed helping improve systems that would feed millions. So he kept his head down, tried not to accidentally insult anyone, and spent his downtime at a small establishment near the work sites where off-world contractors gathered to decompress. Today, his colleague Martinez was scrolling through local news feeds and stopped on footage from a ceremonial procession. "Hey, Reed, you ever see Princess Amaralin in person?" Jackson glanced at the screen showing a woman in formal regalia addressing a crowd. Princess Amara was somewhat legendary even among off-worlders. Brilliant administrator. Architect of the agricultural reforms Jackson was helping implement, and genuinely beloved by her people for actually caring about their well-being instead of just maintaining power. "Just from a distance during official events," Jackson said. "Why? Just wondering what you think. She's pretty impressive, right?" Jackson watched the footage of Amara speaking passionately about sustainable farming practices and community food security. She was beautiful in that untouchable royal way, but more than that, she was clearly intelligent and sincere. The kind of person you couldn't help but admire. "Are you kidding?" Jackson said, not really thinking about his words. "She's incredible. Smart, compassionate, actually uses her power to help people instead of just accumulating more of it. I'd marry her in a heartbeat." His colleagues laughed at the hyperbole. Jackson grinned and went back to his drink. It was the kind of offhand comment people make about celebrities or royalty they'd never actually meet, admiration wrapped in impossible hypotheticals. He didn't notice the Velisian merchant in the corner whose metallic skin flashed with sudden interest. Didn't know that Velisian culture considered any declaration about marriage, even casual ones, to be spiritually binding expressions of intent that could not be spoken lightly. Didn't realize he'd just made what Velisians recognized as a formal proposal, witnessed and therefore legally significant. Jackson Reed had no idea that his careless words had just changed his entire life. The summons arrived 3 days later. Formal imperial seal, official language requesting Jackson's presence at the palace for matters of legal and personal significance. Jackson assumed there had been some complaint about his work or maybe a technical issue that needed addressing in person. He definitely didn't expect to be escorted to a private audience chamber where Princess Amaralin herself waited, accompanied by advisors, legal scholars, and, bizarrely, the merchant from the establishment where Jackson had made his careless comment. "Mr. Reed," Amara said, her skin the calm silver of formal composure, her ears in diplomatic neutral position. "Thank you for attending. We have a matter to discuss regarding statements you made 3 days ago." Jackson's mind raced through everything he'd said recently, trying to remember if he'd accidentally insulted someone or violated some protocol he didn't know about. One of the legal scholars stepped forward. "On the evening in question, you declared before witnesses that you would marry Princess Amaralin. In Velisian culture, such declarations carry sacred weight and are recognized as binding expressions of marital intent." Jackson stared at them. I was joking. I didn't mean it as an actual proposal. I was just saying she's impressive." "Intent is immaterial," the scholar continued. "The words were spoken, witnessed, and reported as required by law. You have made a formal proposal of marriage to the princess. This couldn't be happening." Jackson looked at Amara, expecting her to dismiss this absurdity, to explain it was all a misunderstanding. Instead, Amara's skin shifted to thoughtful gold. "I have chosen to accept." The room spun. "What?" "I've been pressured for years to accept arranged marriages to various noble houses," Amara said calmly. Political alliances, strategic unions, carefully calculated matches that would benefit everyone except possibly me. She looked directly at Jackson. You didn't know I could hear you. You had no political agenda, no calculated intent. You simply said I was incredible and meant it. Your Highness, in all the formal proposals I've received, Amara continued, not one has ever mentioned my actual work or character. They discuss bloodlines, territory, influence. You discussed my reforms and compassion. Her skin flashed with something that looked like hope. So yes, Mr. Reed, I choose to accept your proposal, if you'll have me. Jackson's brain had apparently stopped working. This was insane. He'd made a throwaway comment, and now an alien princess was accepting it as a marriage proposal because it was sincere. You can't. We don't even know each other, he managed. Then perhaps we should correct that, Amara said, a slight smile touching her lips. Velisian law allows withdrawal from marriage oaths if both parties agree. But I'd like to propose we attempt proper courtship first. You said you'd marry me in a heartbeat. I'd like to know if that heart was speaking truth or merely being careless. And Jackson, looking into her eyes and seeing not royal authority but genuine curiosity and maybe loneliness, heard himself say, courtship. Yes, we could try that. Amara's skin blazed warm gold, Velisian joy, and Jackson realized he'd just agreed to court an alien princess because he'd been too honest in a bar. His life had gotten very complicated very quickly. Courting an alien princess while maintaining his engineering job turned out to be exactly as surreal as it sounded. Jackson had advisors now, people whose entire job was to keep him from accidentally causing diplomatic incidents. He had formal court clothes that felt absurd on his human frame. He had etiquette lessons that made his head spin with rules about ear positions and skin color meanings and 17 different ways to bow depending on context. But he also had Amara, who showed him the real work behind her public image. She took him to agricultural communes she'd helped establish, introducing him to farmers whose lives had been transformed by sustainable practices. She showed him schools she'd funded where children learned both traditional knowledge and modern techniques. She walked with him through water treatment facilities that his own engineering improvements had made more efficient. You see this, she said in one village, her skin warm bronze with pride as children played near newly installed irrigation systems. This exists because you understood that good design means thinking about the people using it, not just the technical specifications. Jackson watched a farmer explaining the system to his daughter, both of them excited about reliable water access. I just made sure it was maintainable with local resources, seemed obvious. To you, perhaps. Amara's ears tilted forward. Affection, his crash course education told him. But many consultants design impressive systems that break down without expert maintenance. You design for the real world, for actual people. That's rarer than you think. They worked well together, Jackson discovered. His practical engineering mind complemented her visionary reforms. His direct communication style cut through court politics she navigated with diplomatic grace. His humor helped her relax away from the constant formality of royal life. And she was brilliant. Not just intelligent, but genuinely insightful about complex systems, agricultural, social, political. She'd listen to his engineering explanations with focused attention, then ask questions that made him reconsider assumptions he hadn't known he was making. Why did you choose this career? She asked one evening as they reviewed plans for expanded water infrastructure. My dad was a farmer, Jackson said. Worked land that had been in our family for generations. Taught me that good soil and clean water aren't just resources, they're foundations for everything else. When he lost the farm to climate shifts, he shrugged. Figured I could help make sure other families had better access to what they needed. Amara's skin shifted to deep blue, Velisian empathy. You understand what I'm trying to build here. Not just efficient systems, but stable foundations for actual lives. Yeah, Jackson said and meant it. I get it. The court remained divided. Conservative nobles complained that a human marriage degraded royal bloodlines. Progressive factions celebrated it as unprecedented bridge building between species. The media speculated endlessly about whether this was political theater or genuine connection. Jackson and Amara, caught in the center of speculation and scandal, just kept working together and discovering that the careless declaration might have been more truthful than intended. The formal ceremony was scheduled for the end of the month, and Jackson was given one final opportunity to withdraw without consequence or dishonor. He stood in the preparation chamber, wearing Velisian ceremonial robes that probably cost more than his entire previous year's salary, staring at his reflection and wondering what the hell he was doing. He barely knew Amara despite weeks of intensive courtship. This would tie him to an alien empire, to political complications he couldn't begin to imagine, to a life nothing like what he'd planned when he accepted a 6-month engineering contract. "You look terrified," Martinez said from the doorway. His colleague had been permitted to attend as Jackson's witness. "I'm marrying an alien princess because I made a dumb comment in a bar," Jackson said. "Terrified seems appropriate. You could still back out." She said you could. Jackson thought about Amara explaining her water conservation initiatives with her skin flashing excited gold, about her laughing at his terrible jokes, about the way she asked his opinion on reforms like his perspective actually mattered, about how she made him want to be better, more thoughtful, more purposeful, more brave. "No," he said quietly. "I meant it. I just didn't know I meant it until I actually got to know her." The ceremony hall held thousands, in person and via broadcast, across coalition space. Jackson walked in feeling absurd and overwhelmed, and then he saw Amara waiting at the ceremonial platform, her skin cycling through nervous silvers and hopeful golds, and everything else fell away. Their eyes met across the formal space, and he knew he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The officiant began the traditional words. When it came time for Jackson to confirm his oath, the prepared speech his advisors had written felt wrong. Instead, he said what was actually true. "I said I'd marry you in a heartbeat, and I meant it. I just didn't know I meant it until I actually got to know you. So yes, absolutely. Let's do this." The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. You didn't improvise in Velisian ceremonies. But Amara's skin blazed with golden light, her laughter echoing through the space, joyful and unrestrained in a way that made the formal court gasp. When she confirmed her own oath, she added, "Thank you for being careless with your words and careful with your heart." Years later, their partnership had transformed Velisian agriculture and set new precedents for human-alien cooperation across the coalition. When reporters asked Jackson how it felt to have accidentally married into royalty, he grinned and said it wasn't an accident. It was honesty delivered before he knew to be diplomatic about it. The best things in life often start with saying what you mean before you have time to calculate whether you should, he explained. Amara, standing beside him with her skin warm gold and her hand in his, added, "Sometimes the universe listens to our hearts even when our mouths are being careless. The bravest thing you can do is honor truth when it accidentally escapes." Their children, 3 of them now, with pointed ears and skin that shifted through both Velisian metallic